I stood frozen at the front door, my hands trembling as my parents and sister smiled at me like nothing had happened. Just days after James's funeral, the funeral they didn't even bother attending, they had the audacity to show up, not to grieve, but to claim what they believed was theirs. They didn't come to help. They came to take. But what they didn't know was that I was no longer the quiet daughter they could guilt into silence. Not anymore. Because this time, I had proof. This time, I had the truth. And this time, I was ready to expose everything. She thought I'd stay silent, that I'd bow my head and obey, like always. But this time, she made one mistake too many. My name is Lily, and for the last 3 years, I've been watching my husband, James, slowly slip away. When we first found out he had stomach cancer, it felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. James was only 40 years old, doing well in his job as an investment banker, and we had a sweet 10-year-old son named Stephen. We thought we had many happy years ahead of us. The only small comfort in this nightmare was that James' good income meant we could afford the best treatment possible. We flew to different specialists across the country, tried new therapies, and did everything we could, no matter the cost. But as time passed, it became clear that the treatments were only giving us more time, not a cure. Through all of this, James' parents, Linda and Jake, were always there for us. They lived just 15 minutes away and helped without being asked. "Lily, we'll pick Stephen up from school today," Linda would say on days when James had treatments. "Don't worry about dinner either. I made extra lasagna." At night, Stephen would sometimes tug on my sleeve while I tucked him into bed. His eyes were full of worry and hope. "Mom, when is Dad going to get better?" he'd ask softly. I never knew how to answer that. How do you tell a child that his dad is dying? So I would just stroke his hair and say, "The doctors are doing their best, sweetie." My own parents, Sophia and Robin, were a different story. They lived just as close as James' parents, but it felt like they were miles away. "Mom, can you pick up Stephen from school today? James had a bad reaction to chemo, and Linda has a doctor's appointment," I asked one day. "Oh, Lily, I'm really sorry," my mom replied. "But we promised to help your sister with apartment hunting today. You know how Nora gets when she's stressed." It was always about Nora. That's how it had been my whole life. When I was 7, my parents didn't come to my school play because Nora had a cold. At my high school graduation, they left right after the ceremony to go to Nora's dance recital, even though she was just part of the group and not even the lead. Over the years, I got used to being second. James became my real family, and his parents treated me more like their daughter than my own parents ever did. So when James' health got worse last month, I prepared myself for the end, surrounded by the people who truly cared about me. The night James died, I was holding his hand. His breathing had slowed down hours earlier, and the hospice nurse had told me it wouldn't be long. "Lily," he whispered, his voice barely there. "Take care of Stephen. You're the strongest person I know." Those were his last words. I sat there for hours, still holding his hand as it slowly turned cold. I couldn't believe the man I had spent 13 years with was really gone. Linda and Jake, James's parents, came to the hospital within an hour after I called. Their faces were filled with the same pain I was feeling. "We're here, sweetheart," Linda said as she hugged me. "We'll always be here." That night, I sent a message to my mom. "James passed away tonight." An hour later, she replied with just 2 words. "That's terrible." No phone call. No, "How are you and Stephen holding up?" No offer to come over. Just a short, cold message. But I was too numb to care. There was a funeral to plan, a son to comfort, and a broken life I had to somehow piece back together. There would be a small reception afterward. I saw the RSVP receipts appear next to my parents' and Nora's names, yet no one replied. The night before the funeral, I was so anxious that I called my mom directly. "Mom, you saw my message about the funeral tomorrow, right? It starts at 10 o'clock. There was a short pause. "Oh, Lily."
"I'm sorry," she said.
"But we can't come." Nora made a lunch reservation at Alio's to celebrate her promotion. It's at noon, and we already said we'd be there. I almost dropped the phone. "Mom, this is James's funeral." "James, The one who helped pay to fix your roof when it caved in 4 years ago. James, who's been part of our family for over 11 years. That was a long time ago, Lily, she replied coldly. We need to focus on the living, not the dead. Nora needs our support right now. Before I could say another word, she hung up. I quickly called Nora, my hands shaking with anger and disbelief. Hey, she answered, already sounding annoyed that I was bothering her. Nora, Mom told me you're having a party tomorrow, at the same time as James's funeral. Can't you move it? Or at least delay it a little, so they can come to the service first? No way, she said with a laugh. I can't change the reservation now. Everyone's already confirmed. And this promotion is a big deal. It's not like I can just move a funeral or whatever. A funeral or whatever? I repeated, my voice rising. Nora, my husband is dead. James, the man who paid for your entire college education. That was a long time ago, she snapped. Look, my promotion is more important than some funeral. People die every day. Then she hung up. I stood in the kitchen holding the phone, completely shocked. A moment later, it buzzed again. It was a message from my mom. Stop pressuring your sister. Her celebration is more important than a funeral. She's worked hard for this promotion. The day of James's funeral was sunny and bright, which felt like a cruel joke considering how broken I felt inside. The service was simple and beautiful, just the way James would have wanted it. He never liked big, showy things. The small chapel was filled with people who truly cared about him, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and most of all, his family. During the eulogy, I spoke about how kind and generous James was. I talked about how deeply he loved Stephen. Stephen sat between Linda and Jake, holding their hands as he cried quietly. After the service, many people came up to me to say kind words and offer support. A few of them asked where my parents were. I was surprised not to see your folks, said one of James's old college friends. Are they not well? They had something else planned, I replied coldly, not wanting to explain. Linda noticed how uncomfortable I was and quickly changed the subject, guiding the conversation away from my parents. That night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in the living room surrounded by sympathy cards and flower bouquets. The house felt painfully quiet without James. The silence hurt. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Nora. Hope the funeral went okay. Mom posted pictures from my party. I got promoted to senior account executive. No sympathy. No mention of James. Just a message about her party, filled with smiley faces and celebration emojis. I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone and went upstairs to check on Stephen. He was fast asleep, holding the teddy bear James had given him for his last birthday. I climbed into bed next to Stephen, finding comfort in the sound of his soft breathing. For the next week, I felt like I was walking through a cloud. Everything felt heavy and blurry. Linda and Jake came by every day. They brought food, took Stephen to the park, and helped me go through James's things. My own parents didn't call. Not once. They didn't check on Stephen. They didn't ask how I was doing. Nothing. A week after the funeral, I got a phone call from James's lawyer, Mr. Cam. Mrs. Turner, he said kindly. It's time to go over James's will. He made very careful plans. Would tomorrow afternoon work for you? I agreed and called Linda and Jake to come too. James had included them in the will, and I knew he would want them there. The next day, Mr. Cam arrived at exactly 3 p.m. He carried a leather briefcase and had a serious look on his face, but when he saw Stephen, his expression softened. Your father talked about you all the time, he told Stephen gently, shaking his small hand. He was very proud of you. We all sat in the living room, me, Stephen, Linda, and Jake, ready for the reading. I didn't expect anything surprising. James and I had talked many times about what he wanted, so I thought I knew everything already. But just as Mr. Cam was about to begin, the doorbell rang. Are you expecting someone else? Linda asked, looking confused. No, I said, just as puzzled, and went to open the door. I nearly slammed it shut again when I saw who was there. My parents. And Nora. All standing on the porch with fake, sad looks on their faces. I was shaking with anger. I have no idea, I said, trying to stay calm, but I'm not going to cause a scene in front of Stephen. Mr. Cam, always professional, raised an eyebrow and said, "Shall we begin the reading of the will?" My parents and Nora sat on the couch across from Linda and Jake. Stephen sat beside me in a small armchair. The room was filled with tension. You could feel it in the air. I, James Brandon Turner, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament, Mr. Cam began, reading from a formal document. James had organized everything with great care. To his parents, he left $300,000 to help them enjoy retirement and to thank them for always being there for us, and for him, during his illness. "We never expected this," Linda said softly, her voice breaking. Jake squeezed her hand, holding back tears. Then came the main part. To me, James left our house, 2 city apartments I didn't even know he owned, and $500,000 in savings. "These apartments bring in good rental income," Mr. Cam explained. "James bought them as investments 4 years ago." I sat there in shock. James had planned everything so carefully to make sure Stephen and I would be okay, even without him. As the lawyer kept reading, I noticed my mother's face begin to change. She went from looking mildly sympathetic to clearly interested. Nora suddenly sat up straighter, listening closely. When Mr. Cam finished, my mom clapped her hands. "Well, this is wonderful news, isn't it? Lily, you're quite well off now." The room went silent. Linda and Jake stared at her, horrified. "I mean," my mom continued, totally unaware of the mood in the room, "with 2 apartments and all that money, you can help the family. Nora's been struggling with rent, haven't you, dear?" Nora nodded quickly. "Yeah, it's really expensive these days. And you've got 2 apartments just sitting there." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. James hadn't even been gone that long, and they were already after his money and property. "You should give one of those apartments to Nora," my father added, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "What do you need 2 for anyway?" I stood up slowly, my fists clenched at my sides. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice shaking. "You skipped James's funeral for a party. You ignored me and Stephen for a week. And now you show up uninvited to his will reading just to ask for his property." "Now, Lily," my father said in a calm, patronizing voice, "there's no reason to be selfish. You're alone now, but you've got all this money. You should share it." "Selfish," I repeated, my voice rising. "I'm not alone. I have Stephen," I said, my voice steady now. "And everything James left is for his future. Every single penny will be used to give him the best education, the best chances in life. Everything James can't give him anymore because he's gone." I looked at my parents and Nora. They glanced at each other, then at Stephen. And for a moment, I saw something in their eyes that shocked me, almost like jealousy. "You're being ridiculous," my mother snapped. "Nora needs help now, not some child who won't even go to college for years." "Some child," Jake said sharply. "That's your grandson. And his father just died." My mother's face turned red. "Don't you dare tell me how to treat my own grandson," she snapped back. "We've been in this family longer than you. And yet you've shown no interest in being part of it," Linda responded coldly. "We've been here every single day, helping Lily and Stephen, while you ignored them." "That's enough," I said, raising my voice and finally losing my patience. "Stephen, can you go upstairs to your room for a little while? Take Mr. Cam with you and show him your model airplanes." Mr. Cam looked thankful for the excuse and quickly stood up. "I'd love to see your collection, young man," he said kindly, taking Stephen's hand. Once they were gone and out of hearing range, I turned to face my parents and sister. I didn't hold back anymore. "How dare you walk into my house just days after James's funeral, a funeral you didn't even care to attend, and ask for his money? James worked hard his whole life to provide for me and Stephen. He fought cancer for 3 years, and not once did you offer to help. You couldn't even watch Stephen for a few hours." "That's not fair," my father started to say. But I cut him off. "No, what's not fair is James spending thousands to fix your roof when it collapsed during the storm 4 years ago. What's not fair is us paying for Nora's entire college education when you said you couldn't afford it. And now you think you deserve something? I took a deep breath and looked them straight in the eye. Let me make this clear. I will not give you any of James's money or property.
Not now.
Not ever. Every penny will be used for Stephen just like James wanted. That's what will happen. My mother's face twisted in anger. You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you. I stared at her. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Name one thing. One real act of love or support. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to say a word. Exactly, I said quietly. I think it's time for all of you to leave. The door slammed shut behind them, and I dropped onto the couch, completely drained. You did the right thing. Jake said gently, but firmly did I asked there. Still my parents' Nora is still my sister. Being related by blood doesn't make someone family, Linda said, as she sat beside me and took my hand. Love makes a family. Being there during the hard times makes a family. I nodded. I knew she was right, but the hurt of being rejected, something I had felt my whole life, was still there. Later that night, after Linda and Jake had gone home and Stephen was fast asleep, I sat down at my computer. A notification popped up. My mother had tagged me in a post on social media. It read, "Heartbroken that my eldest daughter has become so greedy and selfish after her husband's death. She refuses to help her struggling sister, even though she now owns 2 city apartments and has plenty of money. Money has changed her." I stared at the screen. In shock, the comments from relatives and family friends started pouring in. People who had no idea what had really happened. Don't let Lily get away with this. Family should always help family. Poor Nora always struggling while Lily has everything handed to her. A wave of anger rose in me like never before. Even for my mother, this was a new low, trying to shame me publicly so I'd give them James's money. I took a deep breath and placed my fingers on the keyboard. If she wanted to share our family's private matters in public, then I was going to share the truth. I began to type. I've stayed silent for a long time, but since my mother has made this public, I feel the need to respond. 4 days ago, I buried my husband James, who died after a 3-year fight with stomach cancer. My parents and sister did not come to his funeral. Why? Because my sister scheduled a party for her job promotion on the same day, and they thought that was more important. For those who don't know, James helped my parents many times. He paid for major repairs to their home and covered Nora's entire college education.
But when he got sick, and I asked them to
help, even just to watch our son for a few hours, they always said they were too busy. Yesterday, they came uninvited to the reading of James's will. When they found out he had left money and property to me and our son, they immediately demanded that I give one of our rental homes to Nora, saying, and I quote, "She needs it more than some child. That child is their 10-year-old grandson. He's just a little boy who lost his father. I'm not sharing this to hurt anyone. I'm sharing it because I'm tired of being seen as the bad person in a story where I've only ever tried to be a good daughter, sister, wife, and mother."
James.
Money will be used exactly as he wanted, for our son's education and future. That's it. I hope this clears up the lies. I attached screenshots to the post. One showed my mom's message where she said Nora's party was more important than James's funeral. Others showed texts where they refused to help during his illness. My finger hovered over the post button for a few seconds, then I clicked it. Within minutes, the comments on my mother's original post completely changed. Sophia, is this true? You skipped your son-in-law's funeral for a party? I can't believe you expect Lily to give away property meant for her son. Those messages are shocking. How could you say a party is more important than a funeral? Calls and messages started coming in that evening. Relatives and friends were shocked by what my parents had done. Many reached out to support me. My mom tried to comment saying I was lying, but the screenshots proved everything. After a while she deleted her post, but it was too late. The truth was out. The next morning I woke up to dozens of missed calls from my parents and Nora. I didn't listen to any of the voicemails. I blocked all their numbers. I
Didn't want to hear anything they had to
say. Over the next few weeks they kept trying to reach me. They sent emails asking for forgiveness, but still asked for money. They sent messages through mutual friends. They even showed up at our house uninvited. Each time I stood my ground. I had made my decision. They were no longer part of our lives. They're never going to change, are they? I asked Linda one afternoon as we watched Stephen playing in the backyard. People don't change easily, she said gently. Not deep down anyway. It's strange, I said. I used to think I needed their love and
approval. I spent my whole life trying to
earn it, but now, Linda said, finishing my thought, you know your own worth and you know Stephen deserves better than to go through what you did. 7 months after James' death, life had found a new rhythm. Linda and Jake were still deeply involved in our lives. They joined us for Friday dinners and helped with Stephen's school events. I had started managing the rental properties James left behind too. My surprise, I actually enjoyed the work. The apartments in the city center turned out to be great investments. They brought in steady income and added to the savings I was building for Stephen's future. I also used some of the money to invest in shares of companies James always believed in. It felt good to see the money grow and receive steady payments from those investments. As for my parents and Nora, I sometimes heard news about them through other family members. They were having money problems. Nora had lost her job and my parents were complaining about the high costs of retirement. Every time someone brought it up, they would hint that maybe I could help them. My answer was always the same: I'm sorry they're struggling, but my responsibility is to my son. Some people said I was cold or unforgiving. Maybe I was, but when I looked at Stephen growing stronger, smiling more, and surrounded by people who truly loved him, I knew I had made the right decision. One night, as I tucked Stephen into bed, he asked something that surprised me. Mom, do you ever miss Grandma Sophia and Grandpa Rob? And I paused, thinking about how to answer in a way that was honest but wouldn't hurt him. I miss the kind of relationship I wished we had, I said softly, but not the one we actually had. He nodded slowly, like he understood more than a child his age should. I'm glad we have Grandma Linda and Grandpa Jake. Me too, buddy, I said, hugging him. Me too. Some people will never understand why I cut ties with the family I was born into. They've never felt the kind of hurt I lived with, the constant letdowns, the unfairness, the painful truth that some people just can't put others first. But I understood, and more importantly, I had broken that pattern. Stephen would grow up knowing he is loved, valued, and supported. He would be surrounded by people who showed their love through actions, not just words. People who were there when it really mattered. People who didn't ask for anything in return.